Chaos weapons. This is a Starbound mod I've been meaning to cover for my mod showcase series for a while now, mainly because the person who created it, Prodigy, is part of my Discord server. After I expressed interest in making a mod showcase about it, they wanted my thoughts on it. Well, here I am, finally talking about this. In short, I love chaos weapons. I really do. It's a fun mod, maybe not for everyone, but still, it adds lots of neat stuff. As the name suggests, Chaos Weapons is filled with weapons, but also some other things. There's the Attractor, a little purple ball that attracts items and enemies to a certain point. There are some new rare enemies that you need to grab special materials from to craft even stronger weapons in crafting stations. There is the Lothos Detonator, which is a massive bomb masquerading as mining equipment. All of these items, including the weapons, are post-ruin, post-endgame content. So if you haven't completed the story mode or otherwise don't have access to ancient vaults, and specifically the Terraforge, you won't have access to the bulk of this mod's content. Of course, you can always go into admin mode and spawn in your own Terraforge if you really want. In any case, once you have access to a Terraforge, you'll find this thing called the Well of Power. That's Chaos Weapons' first of many crafting stations, and from there you'll find most of the rest of the mod's gear and some higher tier crafting stations. I should point out that in order to get these more advanced crafting stations of weapons, you'll need special ores also added by the mod: Orine, Alathrine, and Zathite. And yes, since Chaos Weapons makes changes to planet generation, you'll need to back up your universe and characters before installing it. That aside, these ores are found in each planet's core layer, usually either alone or in groups of two. Not necessarily pairs, since you can find, say, a single Orine ore next to a Zathite ore. Also, be prepared to spend a ton of time down in the core layers looking for these ores, because they can be hard to find. Once you do find them, though, you'll notice they appear as glowing black dots, and they sound like this when you mine them. No joke, I love that sound. Neat little touches like that push this mod over the top for me. And I like that these ores don't spawn in huge clumps in very specific biomes or generate in random chests and crates, or that you need to go to mod-specific planet types to find them. Since I mentioned it, I should clarify that this mod does not add any new planet types, just ores. Ores that spawn in almost every planet's core except barren planets. On the other hand, those special enemies I mentioned earlier, those do spawn in specific biomes. For instance, one of the new enemy types spawns in midnight planets and biomes, and that particular one drops these things called Thule shards. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. Again, you'll need those, and I mean really need those. These new enemies also hit like a truck, so be careful when fighting them. I'm also pretty sure I did not see every new enemy type while exploring this mod, but generally speaking, high tier planets, so places like Scorched and volcanic planets, are good places to look for them. Now that I've explained how this mod works, it's time for me to start explaining the weapons. As a famous man once said,
"This is where the fun begins."
But maybe don't have too much fun, because many of these new weapons can destroy blocks. Lots of blocks in a single shot. So don't stand too close to any builds you care about when using them. All that aside, you'll find most of this mod's weapons behind the higher tier crafting stations, but from the Well of Power, I'll highlight the Sholot. Yes, that is how you pronounce that. A giant sword that builds itself as a claymore. Its ult rips the fabric of space-time just enough to allow tons of plasma orbs to fill a room. Also, the Radiance, a whip that can place lights wherever you want to, so long as you're within the whip's range. There are some ranged weapons for those who just want to shoot everything down, like the Z, or Z, yes, its name is just the letter Z, and the Zenith. Going into the higher tier crafting stations, we'll start with the Military Multi-Forge, since that's the first one I got. It has the most amount of weapons in its roster, but you'll need Anatsali steel to craft all of them, including what may or may not be the best sword in this mod, the Ataxia. This isn't the only weapon or crafting station which sounds like this, by the way. I should also point out that I don't know any of these weapons' stats, their damage output and such. Again, since we're talking post-endgame gear, I'd expect those numbers to be fairly high. Now, remember when I said to be careful with some of these weapons, that they can destroy tons of blocks and ruin your builds with a single shot? Well, here's the Harkonnen, another weapon you can get from the military multi-forge, and here's its alt. Yeah, I wasn't kidding when I said that, and the Harkonnen is relatively tame compared to some of this mod's other weapons and items that can destroy blocks, being kinda like Frackin' Universe's mining laser. Also, the Harkonnen's alt does not use up any energy. Honestly, my favorite weapon from the Multiforge is the Lucifer. It's a flamethrower which bills itself as a napalm razor. Despite that, and the fact that its description tells you to raise the planet, leave nothing but ash, it does not destroy any blocks. I like that. I think it's obvious at this point that I'm leaving so much stuff out of this video that I could discuss in depth, but if I did, this would genuinely be an hour long, so I'll end the Multiforge weapons with the Chronos. What happens when you cross Vanilla's Magnorbs with a Time Pierce? You get this. Moving on to the Hyperborean Sphere, we find some ASMR apparently. No, actually, this crafting station only has 5 weapons. The Cthulhu, a drill sphere, the Jaxguluth, another Magnorbs type weapon like the Chronos, the Dagon, an ASMR sword, the Nyarlathotep, a shotgun, and the... You know what, I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce that name, but it's apparently a shadow pistol that sets things on fire. Also, it's the most fun thing from this crafting station. Aside from the shadow pistol, all the Hyperborean Sphere's weapons can freeze enemies in place, and they slowly take damage while in this frozen state. The next crafting station I'll discuss is the Chaos Forge, which also has only 5 weapons. There's the Avissos, a ruinous beam cannon and apparently the perfect ruin killer, the Schism, a Leo pistol, the Magnus, a staff that might just be the most fun thing to come out of the Chaos Forge, the Talos, or Telos, a Chaos pistol, and the Vyasni, a palm firearm with a damage output so high it can erase pretty much any regular enemy from existence in a single shot. So, par for the course for this mod. Surprisingly, aside from the Magnus and the Vyasni, I don't have that much to say about the Chaos Forge's weapons. Next up is the Trimurti. It's 6 weapons, and even more ASMR. Okay, I'll stop talking and joking about ASMR stuff now. Much like with the Chaos Forge, I don't have that much to say about the Trimurti and its weapons, other than they're apparently karmic in nature. For instance, the Kali is described as a karmic blade. To me, it looks more like a giant cricket bat than anything else. Maybe that's what it's supposed to be. There's also the Shani, a karmic sphere that shoots karmic lasers, I guess. The Devi, a karmic Glock. Yes, you heard that right. A karmic Glock with a giant eye that judges everything around it, apparently. The Samsara, a karmic machine gun. The Nirmiti, a wand. And the Ouroboros, another pistol. Again, I don't have that much to say about these, other than they're still fun to use. Finally, we arrive at the Well of Pandemonium. This is the strongest crafting station in Chaos Weapons, made from each of the lower tier crafting stations save for the Well of Power, plus a Thule Diamond, crafted from Thule Shards, and Pandasite, a material crafted from the bars you get from this mod's special ores. As you might expect, the strongest crafting station in the mod not only has the crafting stations used to craft it built in, but it also produces the strongest weapons the mod has. First, the Azathoth, a giant minigun looking thing which shoots glowing green balls to destroy all foreground blocks within a certain radius, attracts all nearby enemies and monsters, and deals the same type of damage most of the Hyperborean Sphere's weapons produce. These projectiles slow down, stop, then explode after a few seconds, producing tons of beams that fly off in random directions and can penetrate the ground and kill all enemies hiding in caves. Next, the Asura, a powerful katana with an ult that shoots tons of energy beams. You guessed it, these beams destroy tons of foreground blocks. Next, the Brahma, yet another Magnorbs type weapon that destroys tons of foreground blocks and deals a ton of damage. I'm starting to see a trend here. Also, its ult is a shield. Next, the Shiva, a gun that shoots beams of pure RGB, as in literally red, green, and blue beams. Apparently, the destroyer mentioned in this weapon's description is a hardcore gamer who really wants to show the world how good they are at Dark Souls or something. I don't know. No ult and no block destruction this time. Next, the Ultima Anatheo, a staff with an attack that winds up creating random blocks instead of destroying them. Be extra careful when using this, because this attack can wind up killing you. This weapon's ult, however, just watch. Seriously, the Ultima Anatheo might very well be the single most destructive weapon in this mod. Next is the Vishnu. It shoots lightning that phases to the ground, destroys blocks, and can cause tons of pixels, Starbound's money in case you didn't know, to spawn in. But these pixels are actually projectiles that can hurt enemies. Its ult shoots lasers that destroy tons of blocks and deal tons of damage. What else did you expect? Finally, the Moira, a scythe that seems normal at first. You're going around, slicing and dicing, and then you wonder what its ult is. Unsurprisingly, its ult tears a hole in reality big enough for tons of projectiles to fly through, go off in random directions, and, you guessed it, again, destroy tons of blocks upon impact. Its finisher is one final explosion and burst of energy that results in more projectiles going in random directions. And that's all I managed to find in Chaos Weapons. Like I mentioned earlier, it's likely I missed quite a few things, considering I found some perfectly generic item reskins that I couldn't find a use for. Oh, and some Like I mentioned earlier, it's likely I missed quite a few things, considering I found some perfectly generic item reskins that I couldn't find a use for. Oh, and some random furniture items. Still though, it's a fun mod with tons of fun weapons, several of which need to be used carefully in case that wasn't clear by this point. But what really made the mod great for me were these little details that helped it along. Sound effects, interface touches, stuff that shows that the mod's creator went that extra distance to make sure their mod is unique and stands out. It all came together to make Chaos Weapons incredibly fun to play with, and I'm so glad I finally got the chance to check it out. It might not be for everyone, but hey, at least I had fun with it. Before I end this video, I need to make a major announcement. I now have a Starbound server you can chill and hang out on. Yay! It's called Sutex Labs, and it has plenty of mods, including some NSFW mods and other stuff that I'm not sure I can really talk about here on YouTube. Regardless, head on over to my Discord server for more details. Also, in case you want to see me make more content like this, I have a Patreon and a Ko-fi you can toss money at. Links to those and to places where you can commission me to do some art for you will be in the description. As I always say, you don't have to throw money at me, but every little bit helps. Take care of yourselves, and goodbye for now.